Imagine a technology that, in just a single year,
Yeah.
managed to win Nobel Prizes in both physics and chemistry.
Which is just, I mean, it's totally unprecedented.
Right. And in that exact same 12-month window, it casually beat the Turing test,
Yeah.
basically fundamentally blurring the line between human and machine conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And it did all of that while the underlying costs just completely fell off a cliff.
Exactly. I mean, the cost to actually use this technology plummeted by an unbelievable 280 times. We're talking about usage cost dropping from $20 per million tokens down to, like, just 7 cents.
It sounds completely made up. Honestly, if you pitched that to a Hollywood studio maybe, 5 years ago, they would have laughed you right out of the room. They'd say the timeline was way too unrealistic for a sci-fi movie.
Yeah, they really would. But the crazy thing is, that is not science fiction. That is exactly what happened in the year 2024. So welcome everyone to the Daily English Class channel. Get comfortable, whether you are, watching at home or listening on your morning commute, because today's session is designed to be a massive reality check.
A much-needed one, to be honest.
For sure. We are cutting through all the futuristic hype to teach you exactly how artificial intelligence is actively reshaping the modern workplace, the global economy, and really our collective future.
Because we have officially transitioned out of the honeymoon phase, I think we are entirely done with the wow, look at this funny poem the chatbot wrote era.
Yeah, that novelty is definitely worn off.
Exactly. We are now crashing headfirst into the how does this incredibly complex infrastructure actually run our business phase? And, to understand that shift, we are synthesizing some incredibly dense, newly released 2025 reports from places like McKinsey, IBM, Stanford University, BCG, Deloitte, and Accenture.
And rather than just, like, reading you a table of contents from these massive reports, because nobody wants that, we are structuring this entire exploration around the most frequently asked questions.
Right, the real questions.
Exactly, the boots-on-the-ground questions that professionals like you are struggling with right now. So let us just jump right into the biggest one.
Let's do it.
Okay, so FAQ number 1. For the last couple of years, it really felt like we were watching this, I don't know, this nuclear arms race between 2 or 3 massive tech giants to build the one all-knowing giant AI model that would basically rule the entire business world. Is that still the trajectory we're on?
It absolutely felt that way for a long time, but the data is telling a completely different story today.
Oh, really?
Yeah. If you look at the new AI index report out of Stanford, they revealed this massive shift in the underlying architecture of the industry. So the performance gap between those incredibly expensive closed system AI models, the ones guarded behind strict corporate paywalls, and the free open weight models has, well, it's practically vanished.
Wait, define vanished for me, because those closed models had a massive head start, like billions of dollars in head start.
They did. They really did. In early 2024, the top closed model was beating the top open model by about 8% on all the standard industry benchmarks.
Okay, 8% is a solid lead in tech.
Right. But fast forward just 1 year to February 2025, that gap narrowed to a microscopic 1.7%.
Wow. Just 1.7.
Exactly. The open model is basically caught up because once the fundamental architecture of, how to train these systems became widely understood, the open source community could just iterate almost instantly.
Okay, wait. Let me stop you right there. Because if I am a CEO and I am listening to this session right now, I'm immediately thinking about my competitive edge.
Naturally.
Because think about it. A massive general-purpose large language model is basically a Swiss Army knife. It is great for a camping trip, right? You can open a can, you can cut a piece of rope.
Sure.
But you would never want a surgeon using a Swiss Army knife in a highly specialized operating room.
That's a great analogy. You'd want specialized tools.
Right. But more importantly, if these open weight models are nearly as good as the closed ones, and they are essentially free to download, how does any company maintain an advantage? Like if my competitor and I both have the exact same super smart free AI, neither of us has an edge. Intelligence just becomes commoditized.
That is precisely the realization sweeping through boardrooms right now. And IBM's 2030 Enterprise Report answers that exact dilemma.
What do they say?
They say tomorrow's competitive advantage is not about renting the smartest generic AI from a massive tech giant. It is about blending what Gartner is now calling domain-specific language models, or DSLMs, with your own proprietary, messy internal data.
Oh, interesting. DSLMs.
Yeah. In fact, IBM found that 72% of executives expect small language models, or SLMs, to become significantly more prominent in their organizations than those giant large language models.
I have to admit, that sounds totally counterintuitive to me.
How so?
Well, we have been trained to think bigger is always better with AI. Billions of parameters, trillions of tokens. Why would smaller suddenly be better?
Because in a business context, precision and security matter so much more than vast, generalized knowledge. Think about the mechanism of how these models are built, right?
Okay.
A giant generic model has basically read the entire internet. It read Reddit, Wikipedia, cooking blogs, everything. It knows everything, but it is easily confused. A domain-specific language model, on the other hand, is trained strictly on specialized industry data.
So it's super focused.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It understands your specific regulatory environment, your incredibly niche corporate jargon, your exact product specifications.
Ah, I get it. So it is the difference between like hiring a brilliant generalist who just graduated college versus hiring a veteran accountant who has worked in your specific tax bracket for 20 years.
That is exactly it. The organizations winning right now are not using one giant model for everything. They are building highly customized multi-model ecosystems.
So they mix and mash.
Right. You use a small, highly accurate, custom model to process your internal financial documents safely, rather than, passing your sensitive data to a giant generic model that might accidentally hallucinate a company policy.
Or worse, leak your proprietary data into its future training sets.
Exactly. Which
Yeah.
is a huge security nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which actually brings up a massive point of friction. And this leads us to FAQ number 2.
Let's hear it.
If you are listening to this right now on your way to work, you might be thinking, well, my company just bought massive enterprise licenses for a generative AI tool, so we are ahead of the curve.
A lot of people think that.
Right. But are you,
Right.
really? Because there's a huge disconnect between buying the tech and actually seeing the money. The data from BCG shows that 72% of companies are actively deploying generative AI tools right now.
Yeah, everyone is doing it.
Yet so many executives are staring at their balance sheets asking, where are the massive financial returns we were promised? Like, where's the ROI?
And if you look at the McKinsey data, you find the exact reason why they aren't seeing it.
What's the reason?
McKinsey notes that while everyone is buying the tools, only 21% of companies have actually fundamentally redesigned their workflows.
Only 21%.
Yeah. The companies that are creating real, measurable financial value are focusing 80% of their AI investment not on software licenses, but on reshaping and inventing their core processes.
Okay, I am going to push back on that a little bit because redesigning workflows is one of those classic empty phrases that consultants just love to throw around in boardrooms.
Fair point. It does sound like corporate jargon.
Right. I mean, if I give every single employee in my company a premium AI account that makes them write code twice as fast or draft emails in 10 seconds, shouldn't that raw boost in individual productivity automatically move the financial needle?
It really seems like it should, but let's break down the actual mechanism of corporate work. Most corporate processes are already highly bureaucratic and inefficient.
Oh, tell me about it.
Right. They require multiple approvals, handoffs between different departments, manual data entry across systems that don't even talk to each other.
Yeah, totally.
So if you have a broken, highly inefficient process and you just sprinkle generative AI on top of it, you have not fixed the process. You have just figured out how to generate bad results and organizational bottlenecks much, much faster.
Oh, I see. Okay, so it is like buying a state-of-the-art Formula One racing engine and dropping it straight into a standard golf cart.
That is a perfect way to visualize it, yes.
Like, you can't just bolt a massive engine onto a cheap frame and expect to win a race. The axles are going to snap the absolute second you hit the gas. The chassis literally cannot handle the torque.
Exactly. You have to rebuild the chassis from the ground up. And this is where a critical new concept called agentic AI comes in.
Agentic AI.
Yes, heavily featured in the latest reports from both Accenture and IBM. We're moving entirely beyond the paradigm of a human just prompting a chatbot to write a polite email. Agentic AI is about AI agents, autonomous systems orchestrating entire end-to-end workflows.
Okay, but how does an AI agent actually differ from the chatbot I am used to using every day?
Well, a chatbot is fundamentally reactive. You ask a question, it predicts the next words, it gives an answer, and then it just stops. It waits for you.
Right.
An agent operates in a continuous loop. You give it a high-level goal like reconcile these monthly financial statements. The agent breaks that goal down into steps
On its own.
on its own. It decides which software tools to open. It writes a script to pull the data. It evaluates its own work, realizes it made an error, rewrites its own code, and fixes the error all without you ever prompting it a second time.
That is wild. It has actual agency.
Yeah.
It is actually doing the driving.
Yes. But to let an agent drive, you have to re-engineer the road. Bain highlighted a fantastic example of this with Goldman Sachs.
What did Goldman do?
Well, Goldman didn't just buy an off-the-shelf AI coding assistant and tell their developers to, type faster. They fundamentally changed how code goes from a developer's brain to a live product. They fine-tuned an AI on their own internal code base, but then they completely modernized their entire cloud delivery pipeline to remove the friction. They basically redesigned the golf cart into a race car so the entire system could handle the sheer speed of AI-generated code.
Wow. And doing that requires serious leverage. I mean, you can't just have the IT department run that as a little weekend experiment.
No, not at all.
Which honestly aligns perfectly with Accenture's research. They found that when these strategic AI bets are sponsored directly by the CEO or the board of directors, they are 2.4 times more likely to exceed their return on investment forecast.
Exactly. It has to be a top-down transformation because you are literally changing the physics of how the company operates.
Changing the physics. I love that phrasing. And speaking of physics, that brings us to what I think is maybe the most fascinating pragmatic pivot happening in the industry right now. We have to talk about the actual hard limitations of generative AI.
Right, because for all the hype about autonomous AI agents and winning Nobel Prizes, generative AI still has some absolutely glaring blind spots when you look under the hood.
Yeah, and the Stanford AI Index report highlighted a specific benchmark called Plan Bench.
Ah, yes, Plan Bench.
Yeah, so for our listeners, this is a test designed to measure complex, multi-step reasoning. And it turns out, generative AI still fundamentally struggles with logic tasks. Like, it will confidently fail at basic operational reasoning puzzles even when a provably correct mathematical solution exists right there in the prompt.
And we really need to understand exactly why it fails. Generative AI is, at its core architecture, a probabilistic engine. It is basically the world's most sophisticated autocomplete.
Autocomplete.
Right. It calculates the statistical probability of what the next word or token should be based on vast historical patterns.
So it's kind of like someone who has perfectly memorized a French dictionary but doesn't actually speak French.
Exactly.
Like, if you ask them to write a culturally nuanced original joke in French, they can string the vocabulary together so it looks like a proper sentence, but they don't actually comprehend the underlying rules of comedy. They are just guessing the pattern.
That is such a great analogy. It mimics reasoning without actually reasoning. And this raises a massive existential question for businesses.
Which is?
If an AI cannot reliably reason through a complex multi-step logic problem without hallucinating a plausible-sounding but factually wrong answer, can you trust it to run your global supply chain?
Oh, absolutely not.
Exactly. And that is why Forrester is predicting a massive pivot backward, or perhaps sideways is a better word, to predictive AI for over 50% of enterprise use cases this year.
Okay, I have to pause you right there because that feels like a massive regression.
I know it does.
We just spent this whole session talking about how generative AI won Nobel Prizes and can write software autonomously. Why on earth are we pivoting back to predictive AI? That feels like trading in your brand new smartphone for a really good pocket calculator.
It totally sounds counterintuitive until you look at the actual stakes involved.
Yeah.
In a high-stakes corporate environment, predictability is infinitely more valuable than creativity.
Oh, I see.
Right. A hallucinating generative chatbot that writes a weird, nonsensical poem is a funny screenshot you share with your friends.
Yeah, it's harmless.
But a hallucinating supply chain algorithm that confidently routes a fleet of cargo ships to the wrong continent because it guessed the wrong probability? That costs a logistics company tens of millions of dollars.
That is a very expensive hallucination.
Very. Predictive AI is not built to guess the next word. It is built using targeted algorithms to analyze structured historical data and optimize actual outcomes.
Okay, so for things like predictive maintenance on factory machinery or optimizing delivery routes or detecting credit card fraud, you want the calculator. You do not want the poet.
Exactly. You absolutely want the calculator.
That makes a ton of sense when you break down the mechanisms. And there's a massive physical constraint driving this pivot too, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Because the Delete report points out a phrase I found fascinating. Hardware is eating the world.
Yeah. The sheer computing cost is hitting a physical wall. Every time you ask a giant generative model a question, it is activating billions of parameters, calculating probabilities across massive neural networks, and consuming just immense amounts of electricity.
Right.
The AI index notes that machine learning hardware performance is doubling every 1.9 years, and energy efficiency is improving by 40% annually.
Which sounds like great progress, doesn't it?
It is great progress, but the size of the models is growing way faster than the hardware can keep up. Running a massive generative model to do a simple, repetitive task like scheduling or inventory checking is financially and environmentally unsustainable.
Oh, it's like using a commercial jet engine to power a desk fan.
Exactly. So, highly specialized, hyper-focused predictive models that run on smaller, specialized hardware are becoming incredibly valuable simply because they don't bankrupt the company's cloud computing budget.
Okay, so we are shifting to specialized models. We are rebuilding our workflows. We are recognizing the limits of generative logic. What does this all mean for the human beings who are currently sitting at their desks doing this work?
Ah, the human element.
Yes. Which brings us to FAQ number 3, probably the most anxiety-inducing question of all. Is AI going to take my job? If you were listening to this, you have probably asked yourself that at least once this week.
It is the universal question right now. And the workforce data from McKinsey paints a deeply nuanced picture of the next 3 years.
What are they predicting?
They are forecasting genuine expected headcount decreases in specific areas, namely service operations and supply chain management.
Which tracks perfectly with what we just discussed regarding predictive AI and hyper-optimized automation. If the algorithm can predict the supply chain bottlenecks perfectly, you just need fewer middle managers tracking spreadsheets.
Correct. But here's a data point that surprises everyone. McKinsey also shows expected significant increases in headcount for software engineering and product development over the same period.
Wait, hold on. That sounds completely backward to me.
I know, it really does.
The entire narrative right now is that AI coding assistants can build apps in seconds. Everyone assumes that because AI can write code, the first people on the chopping block are the software engineers. But McKinsey is saying we're actually going to need more of them.
Yes.
If the AI agent is doing the coding, what on earth are the engineers doing?
So what you're looking at is the mechanism of a classic economic principle called induced demand. Let's look at a historical parallel to help it make sense.
Okay.
In the 1980s, when the electronic spreadsheet was invented, VisiCalc and later Excel, everyone panicked. The assumption was that human accountants would go completely extinct because software could instantly do the math that used to take a team of people weeks to calculate by hand.
Right. But accountants didn't go extinct.
No, the exact opposite happened. Because calculating financial models became instantly cheap and fast, the demand for complex financial modeling absolutely exploded.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Wall Street could run scenarios they never dreamed of. Business owners wanted monthly forecasts instead of yearly ones. The world actually ended up needing millions more financial professionals to analyze all this new capacity.
Oh, wow. So apply that to software today. Because AI makes coding faster and cheaper, a company isn't going to look at their budget and say, great, let's build our one app for a fraction of the cost and fire half the team.
Nope.
They are going to say, if software is this cheap to build, we are going to build 10 apps instead of one.
Yeah.
We are going to build custom software for every single department.
Exactly. The demand for software explodes. But you still absolutely need humans to oversee that massive pipeline of creation.
Right.
Accenture points out that the job roles will shift. We won't necessarily need traditional entry-level coders who just type out basic syntax. We will need what they call agentic architects.
Agentic architects.
Yeah. These are humans who design, prompt, and manage networks of AI agents. And perhaps most importantly, we are going to need a massive influx of data governance experts and security professionals.
Because the bottleneck shifts, right? If your AI agents are suddenly generating 10 times as much code or 10 times as much marketing content, the challenge is no longer about the physical act of writing.
Exactly.
The entire challenge becomes, how do we trust this output and how do we secure it before it goes live to the public?
And right now, the data shows that corporate trust is fundamentally broken.
Really?
Yeah. Accenture noted that AI incidents, which include severe issues like deepfakes, massive privacy breaches, and algorithmic bias, spiked 32% in 2023.
That's a huge jump.
It is. And yet McKinsey adds a genuinely terrifying statistic to this context. Currently, only 27% of companies bother to review all of their generative AI outputs before they go live.
Wait, are you serious? That is staggering.
Yeah.
Less than a third of companies are actually checking the AI's homework before publishing it to the world.
It's wild.
That is a ticking time bomb for corporate liability.
Which is exactly why the organizations seeing the best financial results are treating responsible AI as a core competitive feature, not just a legal compliance hurdle to jump over.
That makes total sense.
Think about it. If you are one of the few enterprise companies that can mathematically guarantee your AI workflows will not leak a client's proprietary data or hallucinate a fake legal precedent in a contract, clients will absolutely flock to you.
Yeah. Trust becomes the premium product.
Exactly. But you absolutely need human beings in the loop to build and maintain that governance. The ultimate takeaway on the job front is this. AI is not going to replace humans entirely, but a human who knows how to use AI effectively, securely, and responsibly will absolutely replace a human who refuses to adapt.
We have covered an incredible amount of ground today. We started with the death of the one-size-fits-all AI model and the rise of specialized domain models.
Which is a huge shift.
Yeah. Then we broke down why you have to redesign your bureaucratic workflows before you drop an AI engine into them. We explored the stark physical limits of generative logic and why predictive calculators are making a massive comeback.
Right.
And finally, we unpacked why the explosion of AI output actually increases the demand for human oversight and architectural thinking.
It is a massive paradigm shift to synthesize. It really is. But as we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with one final provocative thought inspired by the trajectory outlined in the Deloitte report.
Let's hear it.
Very soon, we are going to stop talking about AI as a separate software tool. We are going to think of AI the exact same way we think of electricity or the HTTP protocol that routes the internet.
It'll just be everywhere.
Right. You won't log in to use AI. It'll just be the invisible, ubiquitous substructure making the entire world function.
It just becomes the background hum of the workplace.
Precisely. But here is the philosophical question that raises. If AI becomes the invisible, cheap electricity of the business world, then raw intelligence is no longer a competitive advantage. It is just a baseline commodity.
It's a wild thought.
When every single company and every single employee has access to infinite, instant artificial intelligence, what happens to the value of human intuition?
Wow.
As this invisible infrastructure gets built, are you just going to be someone who consumes this cheap electricity? Or are you learning how to wire the house?
Are you learning to wire the house? I absolutely love that because right now, the professionals who are asking the hard questions, the ones figuring out how the wiring actually works, are the ones making themselves completely indispensable for the next decade.
Absolutely.
Well, that wraps up today's session. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us and learn with us today.
It was a great discussion.
It really was. We want to warmly invite you to become a permanent part of the Daily English Class community. Please interact with us down in the comments, drop your own AI questions, tell us if your company is falling into the Formula One engine in a golf cart trap, or share how you are upskilling right now.
We love to hear it.
And if you found this exploration helpful, please take a second to like the video, share it with a colleague who really needs to hear it, and subscribe to the channel for more educational sessions just like this one. Until next time, keep learning, keep analyzing, and keep asking the big questions.